Welcome back, Sixers. Race 2 is here, and this new Super 6 series is already heating up faster than a turbo in a pain cave. Now, if you're wondering what Super 6 is, here's the short version. It's FRR's brand new multi-stage racing series running from October all the way through to April. Each team runs 5 riders, 2 sprinters, 2 climbers, and 1 GC hero holding it all together. I'll break it all down for you in this video. We'll dig into the course, the key segments, race tactics, and those sneaky breakaway spots. Normally I'd give you the lowdown on which bike to pick, but in this series, frames are neutralized, though you can still flex your wheel choice, and we'll cover that later. And finally, I'll wrap up with a few workouts you can smash this week to give you that extra kick when it matters most. So stick around and let's get into it. Yeah, you saw what I did there. Okay, race 2 is the second points race of round 1, and it really plays like 2 different races. But before we dive into the good stuff, make sure you jump into the Flame Rouge Racing Discord. Links down in the description below. If you want to get involved, that's the place to start. This week's battle is on the Navig8 route, featuring a double helping of suffering with the Mayan and Itza climbs, both guaranteed to make you question your life choices by kilometre 30. GC riders, this one's rough. You're going to have to hang on for dear life through the first 25Ks just to survive the sprinter chaos, and then dig deep on the climbs for those all-important finishing points. So yeah, pack an extra gel. Teams are going to need to work together like never before, protecting their GC riders while still sniping those sprint and KOM segments on what looks like an innocent course, but it isn't. The route is Navig8 with a custom finish at the 34.6 kilometre mark, with about 350 metres of elevation gain. A touch less than race 1, but trust me, it still bites. You've got 2 sprint segments and 2 KOM segments in play, which means everyone's got skin in the game. Whether you're chasing points or just trying not to explode before the Itza climb, buckle up. This one's going to hurt, but in a good way. Oh, and if I've missed anything, or Rich decides to move the finish line banner, check the link up here for an updated version. Course breakdown. All right, let's rip this course apart before we zoom in on each of the segments. Out of the pens, it's a left turn straight into the desert. Welcome to Fuego Flats, everyone's favourite stretch of beige nothingness. Expect the race to roll out pretty calmly here, at least until someone decides that they're the main character and launches an early attack. After seeing what went down in race 1, don't be shocked if a GC rider with a couple of loyal mountain goats decides to go long early. Eyes up, early gaps can stick. At 9.7 Ks, you'll hang a left at the LAX roundabout and head down Watopia's southern coast. Things start to get spicy around the 10.5 K mark where the rollers appear. The road pitches up and down like a bad Wi-Fi signal, demanding a few short efforts and probably a few swear words too. Keep your wits about you here. It's prime breakaway territory, especially if the sprinters decide to chill and save the legs. Then at 13.4 kilometres, we hit the first proper segment, the Woodland sprint, reverse. It's just under 500 metres long and mercifully, tends slightly downhill at negative 1.6%. You'll cross the banner at the 13.9 K mark, but don't get too carried away. This isn't the moment for heroics. There's still plenty of road ahead, and smart sprinters will be babysitting their climbers and GCs through this part of the course. From there, we roll to the Sasquatch sprint at 18.3 kilometres. And no, it's not in play. Well, not really. Okay, kinda. This is the wildcard challenge, and those lucky enough need to go a bit longer here to finish top 5 first over the line. The banner's at the 18.7 K mark. Past that, and things calm down a little bit and stay relatively flat. Flat being the generous word considering what's coming. At 21.6 kilometres, you'll glide into the seaside main village, the calm before the spicy storm. 2 Ks later, it's time for the Acropolis sprint, starting at the 23.9 kilometre mark. Another short, slightly descending drag of negative 1.1 over 450 metres, finishing at the 24.4 K mark. Expect teams to regroup here, but don't zone out. The real suffering's warming up in the background. A short descent follows at the 27.2 kilometre mark, but don't get too comfortable. At 27.8, the road bends right, and that's where gravity stops being your friend. By 27.9 kilometers, you've officially hit the Mayan Mountainside KOM. This one's 1.99 kilometers long, 2 kilometers, with an average gradient of 3.1%. Not savage, but enough to ruin a few realities. Sprinters, this is survival mode. Hang on for dear life. Every point counts. Climbers, your moment has arrived. Drag your GC up with you and grab those KOM points. There's a tiny false flap at the 28.5 kilometer mark, another breather at 28.8, but don't be fooled, the pain resumes immediately afterwards. Your crest at 29.6, but the banner's still another 300 meters away. Keep those watts on tap because it's easy to lose seconds and dignity here. After that, you'll get a quick chance to breathe before the final boss of the day shows up. At 30.5 kilometers, it's time for the Itza KOM, 3.75 kilometers long at an average of 2%. Sounds easy, it's not. After 30 kilometers of racing, this is a soul squeezer. There's a little descent at 30.9 kilometers, but climbing kicks straight back in at 31.4. From here, it's a grind with undulations that lull you into a false hope. At 32.9, the road punches up to 8%, eases briefly, and then at 33.6, cranks back up again. If your screen starts blurring here, that's normal. That's just your legs trying to negotiate surrender. At around 34 Ks, the gradient finally eases, but don't sit up. The segment continues for another 250 meters to the banner. That's your line. Well, for now. Segments. Okay. Woodland sprint. The Woodland sprint segment is 490 meters long with a downhill profile at an average gradient of -1.7. It starts at the 13.4 K mark as the road begins the U shape before hitting the beach. While the descent is welcome, it is a long segment with races taking between 30 and 45 seconds to finish it. Like race 1, expect the sprinters to begin drifting to the back of the pack leading into this segment around the 12.7 K mark as the road begins to tilt slightly. Catching those extra seconds is a lot easier at the start of the sprint than at the end. The road does a squiggle about, making it difficult to line up the banner. But this should come into focus at the 13.7 K mark with the last 200 meters all flat. This is where the sprinters with the bigger engines are going to come over the top. So make sure you don't sit down until the banner. Tactics. I suggest the GC and the climbers press on and give your sprinters some draft as they come through. Don't panic too much as there is a short bump around 350 to 400 meters after this sprint where the road turns from sand to tarmac. The sprinters will need to contend with this and it should slow them up a bit. Sasquatch sprint. Whilst the Sasquatch sprint is not a point segment, it is a wildcard segment for those that have been picked. It's a 350 meter false flat starting at the 16.1 K mark. This means that your nominated wildcard holder needs to finish first over the line, top 5, for that sweet extra league point. My suggestion would be to give this responsibility to one of your sprinters, unless your GC puts their hand up for it, in which case stick them with the responsibility. No backsies. Tactics. I would be surprised if anyone else contends this given that there is so much racing to come. Expect things to get hot at least 500 meters as riders hit that short downhill before the segment start. Be on the front here or risk missing out. Acropolis sprint. The Acropolis sprint segment starts at the 23.9 kilometer mark, and like the Woodland sprint, it descends slightly at -1.1 for about 450 meters. Another long sprint. The start beacon for this segment can be found on the right at the beginning of the bridge at the 23.9 K mark. That's your go point, but much like the first sprint, look for the sprinters to drift back about a K beforehand at around the 23 K mark or just as the group crosses this bridge. Tactics. This segment is mercifully flat, which is going to extend some help to climbers and GCs. Whilst the sprinters come tearing through, you can pick up some of their draft, which will help pull you along a little. The question at this point is, do the sprinters back off and regroup, or do they keep the hammer down and open a gap up here knowing it will be closed in short order when the climbing starts? Honestly, the second option could be the power move here, giving the sprinters a bit more time on the climb before the climbers and the GCs catch up. However, the winning move would be for your GC to try and keep up with their sprinters when this happens and attempt to make it as far up the Mayan Mountainside climb as possible. And then as the climbers come past, sprinters can do a handoff. Mayan Mountainside KOM. At 2 kilometers and an average gradient of 3.1%, this climb will be a tough test for many racers, especially the sprinters. Don't be surprised to see them being dropped by the roadside. There is a very short flat spot at 28.5 and another one at 28.8. But they are disappointingly short. The good news is that the gradient here is reasonably consistent, allowing riders to find a good cadence and a steady rhythm. Tactics. As I mentioned earlier, GCs that manage to bridge across with their sprinters after the Acropolis sprint could be sitting in a good position here, depending on how you look at it. The sprinter's final job is to get their GC as far up the KOM as possible before the climbers reach them, at which point they can hand their GC off and let the climbers do the rest of the work. When I say work, I'll point out that this will be just as tough for the GCs. But if you've managed the first 3/4 of this race efficiently, you should still have something in the tank. You can do this. And if your sprinters get you close to the top of the Mayan climb before the climbers get there, even better. Itza KOM. This is a longer KOM at 3.75 Ks. However, it has a softer average gradient of just 2%. It's still a grind, especially after that first kilometer or so, where the average stops being average. There is a section about 2 Ks in that does roll, so you might get a bit of a break here, but keep the power down and the speed up. The Mayan Mountainside KOM will have only just finished a few hundred meters back before this kicks in. If you can come into this KOM on the back of that group, awesome. But don't sacrifice speed to do this if you can help it. It's a draftable climb, but not really enough to influence the race. Tactics. If your GC can stay with you on this climb, you have the race in the bag. But if they can't, don't go back for them. Keep the head down because your KOM points matter. As with all fastest through segments, it's best to start from the back and use the chaser's motivation to help push you along. Keep the power on through those short rollers before attacking the second half of the climb. And when you get to the top, get in the drops and get out of the saddle because that last 200 meters can make all the difference. Breakaway Possibilities. This is a long race with a big flat section at the start. I wouldn't be surprised to see some kind of breakaway attempt at the start, but I don't think it's going to be too successful. If your climbers are good enough, they and your GC could work together to force a breakaway, but it's risky and could result in a lot of matches being burnt. I like to think that the winning boss move breakaway opportunity is after the second sprint segment. If your GC can group up with your sprinters there, it could be a real opportunity to attack that first KOM and open a big enough gap that when your climbers come sailing through, they can take over GC babysitting duties and lead your team to victory. Of course, this relies on your GC's ability to suffer an incredible amount. Isn't that everyone? After 28 Ks of racing, this winning move will require your GC to dig deep for another 6 Ks, roughly 7 to 12 minutes. So be prepared for some vocalization. So what is Super 6 and how does it work? In a nutshell, it's a brand new racing series by Flame Rouge Racing, so you know it's going to spank. It takes the best parts of racing and pulls them all together for this brutally rewarding series. If you've ever competed in a Flame Rouge racing tour or know someone that has, you'll know what I'm talking about. Key rules and structure. Okay, conferences and regions. This series is split into 2 conferences, North-South and East-West. Each span 2 geographic regions. North-South is Europe and APAC. East-West is US East and US West. Within each region, there are leagues, and within leagues, there may be multiple divisions depending on numbers. Each team consists of 5 riders. 1 general classification rider, GC, whose job it is to finish as close to the front as possible. 2 sprinters who contest the sprint segments for fastest through segment points, and 2 climbers who contest the KOM segments for the fastest through segment points as well. Each position in the team has a designated rider and the team captain selects riders for each position each week. Once specified, a designated sprinter cannot contest a KOM segment and receive points. Likewise, a designated climber can't claim points on a sprint segment, and the GC rider can't claim points on any segment. Finishing position is the GC's goal. That means that unlike other racing series where everyone can contest everything, Super 6 forces team captains to really think about their strategy each week and assign the best riders to those roles depending on the course. There is also a wildcard role which is assigned to one of the team members, making up the sixth element of the racing format. The wildcard challenge is announced for each race and is the responsibility of the nominated rider. For example, the wildcard for race 2 requires the wildcard team member to finish in the top 5 first over the line on the Sasquatch sprint segment. Achieving this rewards the team with an additional team league point. Scoring. All right, let's take a quick look at how scoring works. Each rider can rack up to 200 points per race, split right down the middle. 100 points for your finishing position and 100 points for how well you perform in your team role. GC riders, your mission's simple. Go fast, finish high. Half your points come from beating other GCs to the line. The other half from your overall finishing position. Climbers, you'll earn half of your haul from those KOM segments. Fastest through gets you the glory, and the other half from your final placing. Sprinters, same deal. Half from the sprint segments in play and half from where you cross the line. And then there's the wildcard, every team's secret weapon. Complete the wildcard challenge in a points race and you'll bag your team an extra league point. Fun fact, about 81% of you watching this aren't subscribed to my channel. 81. That's like missing your power up because you were too busy checking Discord. So can you do me a solid? Hit that subscribe button down there. It costs you nothing and it means I can keep doing these recons so you don't have to suffer through the guessing game. Wheel selection. All right, let's talk wheels, because even though everyone's stuck on the same frame for this series, you do get to show a little personality through your wheel choice. Now, according to Eric's wheel ranking chart over at zwiftinsider.com, here's how you could play it. GC riders, go for the Envy SES 4.5 Pros. They're the Goldilocks option. Fast on the flats, light enough on the climbs, and solid all-rounders. Sprinters, you've got a few tasty options here. If you want maximum punch on the sprint, the DT Swiss Arc 1100 disc combo is your weapon. But fair warning, those deep sections might feel like your handbrake is on when you hit the climbs. If you're a heavier sprinter, maybe go with the DT Swiss 65s. Or if you're on the lighter side and need a bit more versatility, stick with the MV 4.5s, fast enough to contest the line, but they won't have you crying on the KOM. Climbers, your call's the tricky one. You could go all in with featherweights like the lightweight Millensteins or the Roval Alpinist CLX. But you'll be hanging on for dear life through the first 25 Ks of this race. If you want a smoother day at the office, you might consider the Envies or even the Zip 454s for a bit more speed without totally sacrificing your sanity. Okay, workout suggestions. Let's talk about workouts this week. Sprinters, give the Animeers Team Spirit workout a go. Navig8's Woodland and Acropolis sprint segments are longer than average and come off rolling terrain. This workout focuses on sprints of similar duration with that kick at the end. Climbers, line up the Gorby. Why it works? The Mayan and Itza climbs are 2 to 4 minutes and 5 to 8 minutes, punchy VO2 style efforts. These intervals train the ability to surge over threshold repeatedly with limited rest, ideal for contesting FTS on those climbs while staying near the front. GCs, you've got the ringer. GC riders need explosive repeatability, bridging across gaps and chasing draft trains, and setting up for both climbs and sprints. The ringer hits exactly that. So that's race 2, Navig8. 2 leg snapping sprints, 2 lung busting KOMs, and 0 power-ups to bail you out when things go nuclear. FTS is the name of the game, so race smart, score points wherever you can, and remember, the hardest part is just showing up on the start line. Good luck out there. Smash that like button if this recon helped, and hit subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, are you racing Super 6? And what's your role? GC, sprinter, or climber? Let's hear it.